artificial intelligence is really transforming every domain in the world, and specifically healthcare. We are not here to automate clinician. We're here really to empower the dental clinician.
They want to start their startup. What advices would you give?
Think about what you want to work on. A startup is always there to solve a problem in the world. To really think, what are you passionate about? Think about also doing good in the world. How hard it can be to run a startup. You really have to have a certain stress tolerance. Running a startup is for anybody. Tremendous help to have a good co-founder.
How can I find the right idea?
Immerse yourself in the domain. Get yourself a role in a company that you feel passionate about will expose you greatly. Training yourself to think ahead of what problems do you meet. Meditation has been essential in my development in life and the way I perceive the world. So it has totally changed my perspective on life.
Do you make a lot of decisions based on your intuition?
Yes, I would say the art is to combine intuition also with deep insight.
Looking back, do you feel sense of fulfillment? Do you feel happy? Hi everyone, welcome to very first episode of Unseen Ventures. I'm your host, Bas Verheij. I'm super excited for today's guest, Bas Verheij. Bas is the CEO and co-founder of Promaton. Welcome to the show, Bas. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Kivash.
Thanks. Bas, can you tell us a little bit about your background from your teenage years till where you are right now?
Thanks. Yeah, sure. So I'm just an average Dutch guy from the suburbs of The Hague. It's actually the third biggest city in the Netherlands. So both of my parents used to work in government. They're both retired by now. So not a lot of direct family members involved in entrepreneurship. But me and my brother did start a company when we were about 20 years old. I was in tech uni, started a web development company, and we built a lot of websites for various other parties. So that was the start of my career. Then I went into consulting for a couple of years. And then I was drinking coffee again with my old friend David, who I know from high school. And David is actually a dentist. And back then, he was also just finishing his PhD in dentistry. And he was looking into research specifically for some indications for patients. And he was actually looking a lot at CT scans and segmenting individual teeth in CT scans. So this is where I was drinking a coffee with him and I saw this happening and then realized that we could automate this. And that was this beautiful moment when basically we started to explore joining forces, and where we realized that this combination of David's knowledge in deep knowledge in the clinical field of dentistry, and also his business knowledge regarding running his practice and his market knowledge basically could be combined with my background in technology, and I had quite a good network of people back then. So that really helped us to basically take off.
You mentioned about the company you started with your brother. How that fund went?
So, well, I guess a lot of companies were started in web design back then. So I think this was, about 2005, and both me and my brother realized that a lot of people wanted websites. So we started to learn a bit of programming, learning a bit of doing everything, and then we started to find some smaller companies that wanted to have a website, and we chose a framework to work in, which back then was Drupal, so very comparable to WordPress. And then we started to develop some websites, and then later to develop some more customized modules for websites, and then finding some UXers, some designers, and increasingly we started to work together with those to basically deliver larger and larger websites. But then, of course, I was about to finish my study a couple of years later, and then I chose to abandon the effort, although it was a good learning path.
At Promaton, you are working and leveraging AI in dentistry. I'm curious to know your perspective and future of dentistry, or in general healthcare.
Yeah. I mean, it's. I guess it's all in the news nowadays. But I think that artificial intelligence technology, or even machine learning, which is more of a technical expression of that field, is really transforming every domain in the world, and specifically healthcare. And what happens in healthcare nowadays is that I see increasingly that healthcare diagnostics and treatment planning can be standardized. So that means that whereas you could go to a dentist and get a very different diagnosis based on each dentist you go to. I actually read an article on Hacker News a couple of weeks back where somebody in the US visited 50 dentists and got 50 different diagnoses. So this is really, of course, strange, and we could really benefit from having some standardization in the field, and also from having really a standardization of the quality of care, of what is a caries to be detected and what can you then propose to do.
I think generally healthcare industry, they adopt technology quite late. How do you approach this? How is their approach with the solutions you provide?
So couple of things on that topic. First of all, we are not here to automate away any clinician. We're here really to make the clinician more effective in his or her work. And of course, this will change the field of dentistry. This will really change the daily work of the dentist. And some tasks might fade, or some other tasks might actually become bigger. But all in all, I think this is a natural progression of the field where we are really trying to empower the dental clinician and make his or her work more effective, instead of just bluntly automating the work without thinking about this any deeper. So I think in every domain in the world, there's always people that embrace innovation and people that do not yet embrace change or innovation. I think this is also a natural tendency, and there are actually risks attached to innovation. So it's not even that much of a bad thing that some people don't hop on the bandwagon on the first day. So I think this is just a natural progression of innovation, where we have to build solutions that really help clinicians in their daily work, and then they will adopt it, and then more and more people will start to use it.
Amazing. Um, so you started Promaton in 2017, right?
Yeah, early 2017.
So what were your early challenges you faced?
So, of course, we faced all the challenges that early startups face, and this is my first startup. First time doing something, you always have a lot of challenges. So, I would definitely say that what is maybe more specific to our journey compared to everyone's journey is that we were quite technology focused. Mm-hmm. So both David and me were tech savvy. I came from a tech uni background. David came from a very clinical technical background. We were and still are very passionate about the technology, but this is also a big trap that you don't start to think with the customer in mind. You start to build things instead of testing things first or as soon as possible with real customers, and you sometimes optimize too much for building things instead of just bringing value to the market or making impact in the market as soon as possible. So that was definitely one of the challenges that we faced in the early part of the endeavor, and increasingly we have turned this around and focus much more on the customer today and on the impact that we can make on the short term also.
Great. So what other challenges are you facing today?
The challenges that we face today are really different from the challenges that we faced in the early days. So apart from our technology focus, I think being in a medical market is very challenging by itself. And in the end, we chose to partner with a big public company called Straumann Group in Switzerland, and a lot of other companies or startups in AI, in medical, chose to do the same thing. So I have seen the majority of startups actually getting into a partnership with a larger company. And this is because it's very hard to reach the market in medical, because it's a very closed market, it's a regulated market, it's a market where existing channels are quite strong and customers are loyal to existing channels. So this was one of the big challenges in the early days, which we successfully solved by partnering Straman. And then, of course, being in a partnership today with Straman poses all kinds of different challenges, which is much more around what is then our model of collaboration and what are the biggest impact things we can do, which is much more around the larger portfolio management and all the opportunities that such a partnership offers.
For the audience that don't know, Straman Group is one of the biggest dental company in the world. And I want to say congratulations to you and David on the success. This is a huge milestone for you and for Promaton. So for people that they want to start their startup, what advices would you give?
So it's an interesting question. First of all, think about what you want to work on. I think a startup is always there to solve a problem in the world, and the harder the problem is, and yet also the more you think about how you can solve this, the better is the opportunity for starting a startup. So this is, I think, where the spark can start, to really think what are you passionate about and what would you like to work on, any problem or any topic or theme that you would be in. And there's one addition to this first part of the answer of the question, where I would really like to recommend everybody to think about also doing good in the world, because there's so much stuff that we can work on today, but there's increasingly a bunch of significant problems in the world that surfaced, and you can choose your own problem that you would like to solve. But I think there's a certain freedom to solve problems, and you could really be beneficial to the world by for example, improving patient health or helping people solving problems to their own health. And I think if you can, that would be really a nice goal. So in terms of advice, other than thinking about what you would like to work on, read the Lean Startup by Eric Ries and The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. So the Lean Startup is really about how to validate your problem, how to start a startup and think about the problems you will meet and how to solve them and how to set up kind of the starting organization to do so. And The Hard Thing About Hard Things is really about how hard it can be to run a startup, and that you really have to have a certain stress tolerance and a lot of energy to tackle these problems. And related to this, I don't think running a startup is for anybody. There's plethora of jobs you can fulfill in the world, and I guess it's good to assess your personal fit to being an entrepreneur. And to me, this is about having an entrepreneurial mindset. So for example, I think Yavash, you have quite an entrepreneurial, but in general, I would say this is this mindset of seeing the opportunity in the things that you look at, and to have kind of either a more creative mindset that you want to create certain stuff, or a more commercial mindset that you want to trade and make a profit, or a more operational mindset that you want to set up a business to operate it. And that brings me to the second point of assessing your or thinking about your personal fit. So a company always has different roles. So I have increasingly become aware of my role in the company, and I would say I'm more of an operator. So David is really a visionary person who really can look ahead very, very long into the future and create clarity from a vision perspective. And I'm much more of a person that materializes this. So in terms of the natural roles in a startup, I would say you always have like a more general manager person, and then you would have, especially in digital startups a technical counterpart, and there's always commercial / domain experts, which don't necessarily have to be one person. So in our startup, we had a lot of the building covered, and also the clinical insight and the vision, and we had commercial less covered, which also again points into this direction of, if you then sign a partnership, there's a very good balance in what value we add and what value our partner has. Then I think a third thing to take into account is your amount of time and energy that you can spend on this. There's various ways to approach starting a startup. Some people really can run this next to their daily job or run multiple projects. For me, this tended not to work very well. I'm a guy that wants to go all in, so I kind of prepare for a leap and then spend my full-time effort to focus on this. And this is also where I think things, at least for me, can go as fast as possible. And especially if you're tackling a larger problem in the world, then you might need all the time you have to think about it. And then lastly, as a fourth part, I think you can think a little bit on your experience level. So for me, I had about a couple of years, 3-4 years of experience in technical and business consulting. And I had some experience in my former company on web development with my brother. But I would say that during the time of running this company, I became aware that I was still quite lacking some of the experience, which you of course get by running the company. But in terms of the sweet spot, I would say that having like between 5 and 10 years of experience, which is relevant for the role that you would then perform or the entrepreneurial activities, is very beneficial. So the guys like Zuckerberg and some of the other Silicon Valley famous people are, I think, really an exception. I read some research that shows, I think, that the average age of entrepreneurs where they're really effective is like between 40 and 45.
Amazing advices. You were saying about the co-founder. How much do you think having a good co-founder would add to success of your startup?
I think it's a tremendous help to have a good co-founder. For me, it was personally also just a delight to have a good friend with me, and it makes the experience fun. I've spoken to different single founders, and generally they express just a need of some other person in the room to help them make very difficult decisions and to create a feedback loop, right? So David, for me, and I hope me for David also, tended to be giving each other a lot of feedback, and if you can create this feedback loop, very beneficial.
Great. I think one of the most important reasons a lot of startup fails is because of the having not the right co-founders. And as you said before, it's very important to understand yourself. Are you an operation guy, or are you a person with a strategy or a finance background? So you can find the right co-founder. Maybe you need a person as a CTO. So you were saying about the people find your passion, but let's say I'm passionate about veterinary. How can I find the right idea? I want to have an impact in veterinary. I want to, for example, I see a lot of clinicians, they don't have enough resources. They don't have enough vets. How can I find the right idea? Do I need to first look to the problems and break it down?
So I would definitely recommend to, if you don't have a co-founder or somebody that comes to you with a specific problem, to immerse yourself in the domain. So, for example, if you want to work in sustainability, but which is a very big theme in the world, but you don't know how to start a company, then to just get yourself a role in a company that you feel passionate about will expose you greatly to all their problems, to people that also work there that have the right knowledge to solve them. And in general, I would say just move yourself towards the work that you're really passionate about. Not necessarily start a company tomorrow if you don't have the right ingredients there yet, but at least move towards what you're passionate about. Because if you stay in your current job, which is not the topic you're passionate about, then you're missing out.
Fantastic. What do you think about working in other startups to learn about other successful CEOs and founders?
Also a great opportunity to learn about how to run a startup, about how they solve the problems they meet, and about meeting other people that have the same mindset. So I would definitely also see that as one of the opportunities.
For people that already have a startup, but they are struggling to scale it, there are maybe 7 to 10 people, and they try to scale the company, but they're facing a lot of challenges. What advices would you give for them?
So it's a hard question. Can be various things that can prevent your startup or your business to scale. I think in any case, a very big part of being effective is the ability to think more ahead, to think more ahead of what problems will you face after the problem that you solve today or the next problem that you will solve in a couple of months or weeks. And thinking ahead is important by just training yourself to think ahead of what problems do you meet in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, of course within a time horizon that's uh, within scope of your current thoughts. I mean, you can think about realizing the vision in 10 years, which is good to start with, but then, of course, there will be problems on the shorter term. And then a lot of the problems that we face today are already solved in different domains or by different people. So there's a tremendous lot of books, blogs, and podcasts around specific problems. And I would really recommend to see what knowledge you need and then to acquire this knowledge. So for me, it has been a very nice and interesting journey into product management, into digital product management, where I started more as a just a co-founder running and doing almost everything. And then increasingly, I became a product manager and then a product leader. So this was a very interesting journey, and I'm still learning a tremendous lot every week by just reading books, reading blogs, listening to podcasts. And then what is a more specific version of this is to find a coach. And I would really recommend everybody to look into what problems you keep facing or what would you need to grow into your current role and to find a specific coach with that. So I have had multiple coaches. I have a long-term coach for meditation, almost 10 years by now, I think, which is extremely valuable. And then I had a product management coach in the past 6 months for a very specific trajectory to get more mature in my product leadership role. And then we also had some coaching on the team side with management a couple of years ago. So it depends a bit on what you think is needed, but this I would really recommend.
So you think that having a mentor would be very crucial for especially a young entrepreneur or a person that just is starting a company?
I think a mentor can always make you grow. Even the biggest guys from Silicon Valley had mentors, and it just depends also what you think you need, right? If you have a little bit of time available, which I think you should always have for this, and you have some money available, which might not always be the case, but I hope if you have, you can use it. It would be very beneficial, I think.
Great. So it's important to have a good self-awareness to understand in which areas do I need a mentor? Do I need a mentor in product management? Do I need a mentor in a commercial space? Um, you have a small team, I think 35 people. Actually, it's not really small, but compared to a bigger startup with the same kind of impact. How do you approach team building? What qualities do you look into when hiring?
So for team building, I also grew in my perception of how this works. I used to think more in like really defining what is needed together with your team or with the people that would understand this, and then to just hire in the right people and create a high performing team. And increasingly, I see this more as chemistry, as a chemistry between people instead of role fit of everybody for this individual role. So I now try to look at teams in a way on for every team in a company on how can we really create a chemistry to deliver what needs to be done. So a very important part to start your thinking is what is the job that needs to be done for a specific person, but also for a team, and then think ahead approximately 1 to 2 years on what is the expectation from a person in this role on what needs to be done. And then if you have this and you combine it with a bit of this chemistry thinking on who's already there or what kind of cultural elements create a chemistry potentially where this person can really thrive, that would be a great start. And then, of course, it's about the hiring process itself.
I'm interested to know, how's your routine at work?
It's a great question. And I've just tried to distill something that works for me personally. So currently, I'm quite inspired by the book Grip, The Art of Working Smart. It's actually written by a Dutch guy called Rick Pastor. And it's a synthesis of a lot of books on efficiency and routines, such as Getting Things Done, which is quite a famous book in that domain. So based on his book, I took the recommendation of really having a week planning, a quarterly planning, and then a year planning, both on the personal side and on the business side. So that means that every week, at the start of the week, I will make a note which where I define my priorities, where I define the other to-dos that I have for that week, and then I define a bunch of other things, such as, for example, I have a list of the people that I have a coaching relationship with, and then I think about whether I want to bring specific things to those people or they could bring things to me that I should respond to. And then what is actually also an intrinsic part of this weekly planning is that at the end of the week or at the start of the next week, I try to briefly reflect upon what went well and what didn't went well. And even only taking into account this weekly planning, I already had great improvements. So, for example, I wasn't sure where I spent my time a couple of years ago. So then I started to use a timer logging. I think it was the app Toggle, where I put in every minute that I spent. So I literally went like, okay, I spent now 1 hour to the podcast with Kiavash, and then I spent 1 hour here and 1 hour there. And I found out then that I spent my time in 25 different categories, which can happen if you're founder of a small company, co-founder. And then I actually realized that I should be more specific, delegate certain tasks, or at least be much more focused in where I spent my time. So it was a good outcome, interesting outcome. And this is the result of having a week planning and taking into account reflection on a weekly basis. And then if you want to bring that further and bring more focus and structure into your life, Rick actually in his book also recommends to make a quarterly planning, which in the business nicely aligns to the quarterly planning that we do at Promaton, and then a year planning. And this is actually quite cool to see also in your life if you start to think on your personal life and you say like, okay, what do you want to do next year, right? And then you could say, okay, I want to improve my sleep quality. Let's say that you didn't do it this year, so maybe for next year this will be a big theme, or just you say next year I want to improve general quality of life. And then think with yourself on how is my quality of life, where do I want to improve, do I want to improve my relationship with my partner, do I want to improve relationships with other people. It can be any domain, and actually Rick has a number of life domains, key life domains, which he specifies, and then to think like what do I want to improve, and some practical translation of that on what you can actually do. So select certain learning materials or select certain activities that you want to pursue. Say, hey, I want to work out in the gym. Okay. And then to be realistic at that, of course, right? I mean, I'm also always aiming high. I had to really learn to be more realistic. If you're not going to the gym, then don't say you're going to the gym 7 days a week. That's not a good starting point, right? So if you're not going to the gym, say, okay, I want to go to the gym 3 times in the next 3 weeks. And that's a big win. And then keep it realistic so you can also celebrate your wins and then gradually build habits. And of course, ritualizing is a big part of that, right? To ritualize that the gym, for example, in this example, becomes a part of your weekly cycle, and that you're not necessarily trying to get as much out of the gym as possible, but you're just gradually implementing it into your routine and making it a standard part of your life so that you will over the year do it every week, which is much more important than you put maximum effort in. It's better to do it like 30 times a year or at least once a week instead of doing it for 3 weeks 3 times and then getting injured or being frustrated or forgetting it altogether.
Running a company like Promaton should be very demanding. How do you manage work-life balance?
It's a good question. Honestly, I'm trying to manage it in the best way possible. There's various perspectives on this. So if you'd ask Ben Horowitz, by reading the hard things about hard things, I'd say it might not always be possible to work in a very balanced way. So sometimes it can be very challenging, and especially in early stage startups, you have to build something out of nothing. So if you run out of money, if you run out of options for making things work, you sometimes have to be up late, working very hard. At the same time, I think there's various ways of doing this. And one of the most important things I think is just creating importance or stating for yourself the importance of your personal life, of not working, of balancing work with not work, and of basically setting the rules of the game. And for me personally, David was a very good counterbalance in the early days to also relax, go to the beach, take a proper weekend off, and really manage yourself. And I believe this will also tie into getting back fresh on Monday morning into certain problems. You might think that working more will always generate more output, but I think the quality of your thinking will actually go down if you work too much. So being fresh is worth a lot in that perspective. So generally take care of guarding your life, of stating what you think is important in life. And then also there's a lot of preparation. So if you see that you will face certain problems, try and get the right knowledge in your mind by reading a book, get the right coaching, get people to help you out, because everything that you face, if you do this for the first time running a startup, other people have faced it before in different circumstances, but there might be very relevant information. So that would be my recommendation.
Great. So you mean there is some sacrifices that you should do as a founder, but so there is a culture sometimes, mainly in US and some other countries, that they expect a founder should work like 100 hours a week. And what do you think about this? Do you think is it toxic, and is it going to result in a burnout?
So this is very personal. I think some people want to work very hard and some people can work extremely hard. I definitely think there's various ways of doing things. I myself am not a big fan of working 100 hours a week. I would even say that in between 40 and 60 might be most beneficial in terms of getting the best output, but also getting the best quality of life and taking care of your relationships, your family, your own mind, relaxing, etc.
Indeed, that makes sense. As you said, it's not about like all the time working so hard, working 100 hours, 80 hours, but about taking care of yourself, and which will result the higher quality of work. So, can you walk us through your daily or weekly routines and habits?
Sure. So for me, and I think for a lot of people, there's this combination of the food you eat, all your dietary intake, basically, sports, sleep, stress management, and also for me, meditation that really make a good and balanced week. And in the past years, I've tried to uh, basically mix all of these ingredients into my week program and also devise some way of continuously improving, because I think you really have to get to know yourself and your body in terms of the needs and in terms of how to live your life in a way that you're really energized. And I would recommend listening to the Huberman podcast actually for this. Huberman is a great guy, and I think he's part of this bigger biohacker movement. I do not. I'm not a big fan of everyone in this domain, but I think Huberman has a very strong scientific based or scientifically supported vision and facts. And I think one of the more holistic principles that he has is that once you get into a kind of feedback loop with yourself where you start to test things, how do certain supplements work for me, how does sport work for me, what does it do, and you start to create a continuous feedback loop every week, asking yourself like, hey, is this working for me or not, how can I improve? If you do that for a couple of years, you'll become a different human being.
You were talking about diet, sleep, meditation, and which one of these three had a significant impact in terms of productivity and make you energized throughout the day?
So all of these had an impact, so it's hard for me to distinguish which ones had the most impact. um, for example, food intake for me and improving my food intake, eating healthier, um, not eating before you go straight before you go to sleep, cutting on sugar, cutting on fats, cutting on any processed food made a very big difference in my sharpness. So I have over the past 4 years, every year seen an increased sharpness. And then meditation for me, I think, has been the biggest game changer in my life. So I got into meditation quite early, even when I was 12. My parents had some books in the shelf on meditation, and I tried to explore it back then, and I actually never left it. There were years when I meditated more or less, and I've tried different techniques, but all in all, I've meditated for a lot of years now, and it has totally changed my perspective on life, on basically being more egoless and being more using my life energy and talents to help create this company, and increasingly I become more aware of how I can just help move stuff forward in the world. So it's a bit less about me as a person and more about um, other people in my life, about the environment, and about the world as a whole. So it has greatly helped me, this meditation, to see the bigger realm of things.
For me personally, meditation was a big help, especially in the days of stressful days or when I feel down. And generally, I try to do daily meditation for the last 4 years, but I left it for a couple months. Again, I'm back to it, and I really see a difference. I feel myself calm. I do a short meditation before sleep, and When I go to sleep, it's like the day, everything is just managed in my mind, organized, and time to sleep.
Right.
And so, what type of meditation do you do? Do you do morning meditation, evening meditation? How long is it?
So I would say it doesn't really matter too much for me. I tend to do 10 minutes morning meditation and 10 minutes night meditation when I'm already in bed, just meditate a little bit. Uh, Try different things. I have done a number of retreats where not necessarily vipassana, which is really a retreat where you meditate almost all day or at least in very long blocks of time. I have been with Adyashanti, which is a retreat where you meditate approximately 4 to 5 hours a day in blocks of 45 minutes. And it's also a retreat where you don't talk. So it's quite it could be perceived as quite a challenge. And that has also brought me some deeper insights. But I would say even the short meditations, I were already really changing the way I perceive life over the long term. So great to hear that's on your side also helping you out already. And
Thanks, Bas. Yes, I think one of the person that had a significant impact on my life in terms of daily routines, importance of sleep, meditation was also you, because before I met you, I left doing daily meditations and I didn't really take care of my sleep and my daily routines. And when you recommended the book Atomic Habit, and after that I realized it's all about to have a proper system. And one phrase in the book still stick to my mind is that winners and losers, they all have the same goals. What separates them is their system. um, you were talking about the diet. So how is your diet? Do you follow intermittent fasting, or do you have a vegan diet? How is that?
so this is really a personal thing for me. I've tried many different things. I'm still not fully there in terms of the perfect diet. Uh, so I have a long-term skin rash, atopic dermatitis, and I was hoping that change in diet could also alleviate. And up to a certain degree, it did, but not perfectly well. So I'm still seeing if I can make more improvements there. For me, I'm currently on a flexitarian diet, eating at maximum 100 to 200 grams of meat and or fish per week. It's eating quite light. So I love to eat salads and vegetables and not too heavy dinners, which just works into maintaining a sharpness throughout the day. So um, generally eating healthy, a lot of vegetables, like at least 300 to 400 grams a day, which is a lot, has helped me tremendously. And then in general, eating light has helped me, not eating big fatty meals or big pieces of meat. And then there's a specific recommendation of my girlfriend, which is the Glucose Goddess, which is I think a New York-based writer that wrote a lot about stabilizing your glucose levels based and basically there's a lot of tricks that you can do to stabilize your glucose levels. And one of them, for example, is to eat veggies always at the start of your meal. So if you have a plate with some carbs on it, some veggies, and some other things, then always start to eat the veggies, because this will stimulate your digestive system and it will also somehow stabilize your blood glucose levels. So there's a lot of those tricks, and I would definitely recommend you to either follow this person on Instagram or read one of her books.
That actually makes sense to have the carbohydrate after the vegetables. Personally, I cut sugar for the last couple of months and I see a significant improvement in my overall health and also energy level during the day.
Right.
And so I was watching a podcast. It was saying, if in case you want to have the pudding, you want to have ice cream, try to have it after the food. Because if you have an empty stomach or you just ate a little bit, especially in the morning, and if you have the sugar, you have a huge spike of sugar in your blood. And after 1 hour, you crash and you're craving more sugar, more food. Um, so what about the hours of eating? Because of course, what to eat is important, but what is the impact of when to eat?
Also, very good question. I don't have a strong opinion on that, to be honest. I have tried intermediate fasting. I still sometimes don't eat breakfast. Um, I have tried long water fasts, even up to 7 full days of only drinking water. I've even tried a little bit of dry fasting, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend. Um, I would say that you just really have to find out what works for you. And generally, there's some guidelines. So I think almost anybody agrees or everybody agrees that eating before you go to bed is a bad idea. So eat at least 2 hours before you go to bed. And then, depending on your own personal goals, or especially in case if you have specific autoimmune um, symptoms or challenges, such as my atopic dermatitis, it could be very beneficial to do fasting. But in general, for example, if you're working out a lot and you want to increase muscle or in general maintain or increase weight, then it might not be the best idea to do too much fasting.
Yes, I personally also experience whenever I eat late, let's say after 9 o'clock, after 8:30, I feel that I don't have the good quality of sleep. When I wake up, I feel a little bit tired. I feel like um, it doesn't feel right. So about the sleep, you were talking about the importance of sleep. How does sleep impact you?
Sleep, I think, is you spend 1/3 of your life sleeping if you take it seriously. If you're actually allocating the needed 7 to 8 hours, or
Hmm.
that's true for most human beings, 7 to 8 hours sleep. So um, I'd say I'm still very much learning on how to optimize sleep. There's definitely all the tricks that most people know. Don't look at your screen before going to sleep. Make a uh, wind down ritual for yourself. Don't go into active sports
Hmm.
straight before you sleep. Actually, I think latest research says that you can actually do sports if it's not too strenuous up to 1 or 2 hours before sleep. But I would generally say just get your body to go in a winding down state already. Don't make yourself take too many impulses, and um, make your sleep conditions very comfortable. So there's a guy called Brian Johnson, which is uh, quite a special personality. So you could be a fan of him or not, depending on your perspective on life. But I do think this guy is creating a lot of knowledge on how you can optimize life for sleep, for example. And there's quite some tricks that he shares. So if you like to know, you can follow Brian Johnson.
I think he has the most optimal sleep in the world based on the data that he provides. But he takes it to the extreme. Like I think last meal of his day is around 11 a.m. I'm not sure exactly, but it's quite early, and he is sleeping like perfect condition. Have a separate room for your sleep, not with your partner,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, quite crazy, I guess. I mean, you have to balance this, or implement this in your own life in the way you want,
yeah.
right? And I actually saw, I think you have a Whoop now on your arm, right?
Yeah, I use this Whoop to track my sleep because I was a person um, was in denial of importance of a good sleep. So since I was, I think, 8 years old, 9 years old, I used to sleep one a.m. or 1:30 and
Very
wake up
late.
6:30. And I go to school. I tell my friends I slept only 4 hours and I'm functioning very well. And everybody, I thought actually is a cool thing till when I met you and you were asking me, "Oh, Kiyosh, yesterday you texted me quite late. When did you sleep last night? How's your sleep routine?" And after you mentioned that, I was researching, watching Huberman, and talks about this important of sleep, having like 7, 8 hours good sleep.
Mhm.
And after that, I thought, okay, let me get the Whoop, measure my sleep, and I see in a day I'm very more productive when I have 8 hours of sleep or 7 hours of
Nice.
sleep. still is hard to keep a consistency of 8 hours of sleep, but I'm trying to get there.
Cool. Happy to hear that you found out what works for you, and I might actually also get one. I'm quite enticed by measuring stuff.
Yeah, I think this is one a cool one, and I think anybody wants, they can get any type of fitness tracker, and they record their sleep, and also it's also good for understanding how much stress you're putting for your body in terms of sport and calories, etc. Boss, can you share us some life lesson ideology that guide your decision both in business and also in your personal life?
I would say for me, meditation has been essential in my development in life and the way I perceive the world. So a lot of people use meditation as a tool to relax and to unwind. For me, I see meditation as a tool to really grow mentally and to grow in life and to really explore the depths of what consciousness, of what awareness is. And what I've experienced more recently in the past years is that once you're able to, in a more relative state, experience your own emotions, experience your own thoughts, experience your own whatever you see and feel in your body and in the outside world, whenever you can see that more in a relative way and also let it go, because you can really let such things go through the practice of meditation, life becomes something that really unfolds itself, and you're just playing a role in life, and your own life or your ego, your personal success, or the things that you do become less important. So for me, it is really a different perspective to see what does another person need, what does a situation need from me, what does this company need from me, what does the world need from me, how can I use this energy and expression and talents that I have and that every human being has. So I would say life becomes more spacious, literally. It becomes more space in your life to make decisions, and it becomes less about yourself increasingly. It becomes more about just
Having an impact.
having impact, but also having a positive role really in the world and making a positive change from.
Do you make a lot of decision based on your intuition?
Yes, I would say so. The art is to combine intuition also with deep insight, and I think the book is called Blink, the book about people making good decisions in an instant, where it's said that a lot of practice, I think more than 10,000 hours of practice, will make you a expert in a certain field, and then you will also gain the ability to make split-second decisions. So if a firefighter comes into a house and then realizes after a couple of seconds that this is a very unsafe situation and then retrieves the team just before the house falls down, you could say this is an intuitive decision, but you could also argue that this fireman has a breadth of experience running into houses being on fire, and that this person was actually able to grasp this situation very fast due to the experience. So I'm also a firm believer in really practicing and becoming good at a certain thing, no matter if it's meditation or entrepreneurship or playing tennis. That's all good. And I'm not playing tennis, by the way. That was just a good example.
Looking back to your life, to the success you had now with Promaton, do you feel sense of fulfillment? Do you feel happy?
Yes, I very much enjoyed the journey up until this moment. The team is amazing. I had so much fun with David, with growing the team. So I'm still every day feeling thankful for doing this. I think uh, we're also at the start of a big development of artificial intelligence increasingly being used in almost every business domain, but specifically for healthcare and for dentistry, there's tremendous value still. And I think, I mean, I'm thankful for this opportunity that I got in my life to combine super interesting work, working with very cool and honest people, and then also making a positive impact in the world. I mean, should be now.
Yeah, congratulations on the successes, and I'm very happy to hear that you feel a sense of fulfillment, and definitely Promaton has a huge impact in dentistry and through, of course, Stroma. Is there anything that you fear about future, about not particularly about Promaton, but totally in life?
So, I mean, every type of personality, I think, has certain themes or certain fears. I'm I consider myself like a drive personality. I'm very driven to do things, but that also means that this has a negative side. That if I'm driving myself too hard, I can get exhausted and then get into a more lethargic state. And especially in the past years, I've increasingly been able to keep this balance and to be very like functional, to be high performing and happy and drive things forward. And it also means that if somebody else doesn't see the same vision or prevents me from driving things in a certain way, then I can get fearful or frustrated about things not going where they should go or things falling apart. So I would say that would be one of the less positive sides of character type that
Yeah,
I consider myself.
but wouldn't you agree that we have to trust the process, like trust the world or trust life, whatever that you believe in? I personally believe in, I just trust life. I'm sure it takes me to a good place. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna just sit around and all the money, all the success it comes. I know I have to work hard. I have to take the chances. But what's your approach on that? What do you think?
I fully agree with you. I fully agree that life will bring you somewhere, and you have to face whatever life brought you in the past and whatever life brings you. And at the same time, there's this opportunity, there's always some opportunity to develop yourself and make decisions. And sometimes there's a lot of freedom, sometimes there's not. So to make use of that, I think, is what life is about.
So if you look at next 5, 10, 15 years, where do you see yourself going?
So for me personally, I love to just make a positive impact in the world. And I guess by helping to run companies or create new companies or grow companies in healthcare, this is a very fruitful endeavor for me. I feel fulfilled by it. And this is the case today. And I would see this to continue in the years ahead.
For those seeking a purpose in their life, what guidance can you provide from your own experiences?
I would recommend everybody to look at what you're really passionate about, what you like to work on, and then see how you can actually work on this. Not necessarily by starting a company, but maybe joining a company or an NGO, but at least to focus your life around the things that you're passionate about. So that would be a recommendation. And then, as we've also talked about, meditation for me has really made a tremendous difference and has led to further personal growth in the past years. So I would definitely recommend you to, or recommend anybody to try meditation. You're already meditating, George. So I personally use Waking Up app from Sam Harris, which I recommend, but you could also look into using either Headspace or Calm apps, depending on whatever works for you.
Amazing. We're almost closing to the end of this podcast. Is there anything you want to mention about Promaton that we didn't touch on?
I think we're quite good, and I love your focus also on improving yourself and you yourself experimenting with what works for you. I would really see that as a strong trait, and this is not even only about entrepreneurship. It's also about living a life in a good way and living a good life.
Thank you so much, Bas. I think actually I started this channel for people who are interested to start their own business or scale their business, but also are interested in self improvement about their diet, exercise, meditation, and learn about the importance of sleep. Um, Boss, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed the conversation. Everyone, thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or Apple Podcasts. Thank you.